The number one thing that you should be looking for when you pick an AAU team should be development. Number one is more important than anything else. If somebody calls you to recruit your son and they start talking about shoes and what circuit they're playing on and what uniforms they have and how many flights they're gonna buy your family, if they don't talk about player development, you say, hold on real quick, and then click over, okay? And then don't come back. Number one is more important than anything else. It's important in business, it's important in life, it's important on the court. Brand management, NIL, is how many eyeballs can they get on their product. You have to have a vision. The game of college basketball, the transfer portal is a game changer. Yo, write this shit down. This is important. This is life changing. How many of you guys are excited about this camp? Excited? That don't sound like excitement. How many of you guys are nervous for your kid about this camp? Scared to death, huh? This is a great experience. It's a great camp. How many of you guys have gotten a chance to meet and get to know Kellen Buffington? Before you leave, make sure that you try to spend a couple minutes with him. Great guy. If you've been in this space any amount of time, to find people that are genuine, that are knowledgeable, that are honest, that have experience, and that also are just good dudes, it's hard to find. All right, so if you get a chance to spend some time with him before you leave, please make sure you do that. Here's the second piece to it. What year is this of you guys have been doing? It's year 4?
Year 4.
Year 4. This is year 4, okay? Here, I'm gonna go out on a limb. Here's a prediction, right? In 2 years, and he's doing a fantastic job now. He has a lot of juice in the state, starting to move further out regionally and nationally. In 2 years, Buffington will be one of the most influential guys in grassroots basketball nationally, okay? So if you guys have kids that are 9th, 10th grade, you're gonna need him in 2 years, okay? So make sure that you stay connected with him. My name is Rhossi Carron. I run a sports marketing brand management company called U Sports Group based out of Houston, Texas. Our core services are 3 things. We do event management. So it can be something as simple as in 2 years, let's say your son is playing at North Texas. You call me and say, hey, I want to do an autograph signing. I need you to help me facilitate that, okay? It could be something as large as college basketball sporting events. Now, our second core service is brand management. And that can be anything from helping your son grow his social media following to connecting him with brands for partnership and endorsement opportunities, all right? Our third service is athlete management, and that can be helping guys transition from college to pro. That can be helping you declare for the draft. It can help you with pre-draft training, and it also can be helping from a management or a representation standpoint as he goes through his journey as a professional, okay? All right, they brought me here to talk about brand management. But because my background is grassroots, I spent 15 years in grassroots basketball. I used to run a program called Basketball University. I think because of the experience that I had in grassroots, there's some things that I think that can help you. So I'm gonna talk about 5 things really quickly. Number 1, the process. The second thing we'll talk about is mental health. The third thing is gonna be player development, okay? The fourth thing will be next level. And then the last thing will be, I'll talk about brand management and NIL, okay? We good with that? All right. First thing, the process. How many of you guys are here because your goal for your son is to be an elite high school player? It means could be identified as one of the best players in the state or one of the best players in the country. Show me a hand if you're here because that's your goal for your son. All right, raise your hand if your goal is for your son to get a scholarship and play in school for free. Division I scholarship. Some people acting like they don't care. Raise your hand if your goal is for your son to be a professional, to make money playing basketball at some level, NBA. Raise your hand. Shit, don't be shy about it. Good. How many of you guys have a plan to help you with one of those 3 things? Or if your goal is all 3, how many of you guys have a plan in place that you feel great about? 2 people? That's good. All right, so I'm in the right place. All right, let's talk about the process of it. The first thing is you need a plan, okay? What do you need first? I hope y'all kids are more enthusiastic over there than you guys are. The first thing you need is what? You need a plan. Before you can create a plan, you need to have goals, all right? So here's what I want you guys to do. Here's an assignment, okay? It can be this weekend, it can be this evening, it can be tomorrow. Sit with your kid. If you have a 2-parent household, make sure both parents are there. Single father, single mother, it's fine. Sit with your kid and say, son, I love you. I'm here to support you. All right? And we're going to put together a plan, but our plan is going to be based around your goals. I want you to sit with them and put together short-term and long-term goals. All right? And those goals can be simple goals. Be the starting point guard on varsity as a junior, as a sophomore. Make all district. Make all state. Be an All-American, if that's his goal. Play Division I basketball. And I would list 3 or 4 schools that he would love to see himself play. Okay? You follow me? It may be all rookie team as a freshman. It may be all conference. All right? It may be, I want to be the 20th pick in the NBA draft. Okay? Sit with them. Write those goals down. Okay? Take those goals, and you can get a graphic designer to do it, or you can write it out. Put it on a poster board. Okay? Everybody follow me. Okay? Yo, write this shit down. This is important. It's important. Put it on a poster board. Find the best picture that you have of your son. Okay? Find the best picture. And put the picture next to those goals. Okay? And what I would do, I would get a graphic design person to lay it out for me. All right? A list of goals. It may be 15 goals and a great picture of him. And blow it up on poster board and put it on his wall. Follow me? All right? I'm telling you, this is important. This is life-changing. Put it on his wall. All right? And every day, and make sure that y'all do it together so he's on board. You can hold him accountable. He can hold himself accountable. And every day, he should look at those goals. And he should say, my goal is to be first team All-State. My goal is to be state tournament MVP. My goal is to play at a Division I school. I want to play at North Texas. I want to play at UT. I want to play at Texas A&M. I want to play in the NBA. I want to be drafted, okay? It's going to do a couple of things, because after the goal, you have to have a vision, all right? And the more he sees himself in that light, all right, and he can recite it before he goes to bed. He can recite it when he wakes up in the morning. When he goes to sleep at night, he's going to start seeing himself playing at the Division I level. He's going to start seeing himself playing in the NBA, okay? And you and I both know some of those goals may not happen, okay? But what it's going to do is going to help him be more focused, more diligent, and he's going to hold himself accountable. So when other kids are going out to party and drink and smoke, because he's seeing himself in a different light, he won't do some of those things, okay? You won't have to drag him to go do extra shooting or ball handling, because that's not your goals, it's his goals. Does that make sense? All right, so I want everybody to spend some time this weekend. That's the number one thing. The second thing is you need to have a team to support you in this, all right? And Ms. Miles said a great thing. Your team could consist of a husband, a wife, an uncle, you know, an AAU coach, whatever. But you have to make sure that you stay in charge of the process, okay? So even if you give somebody the authority to speak on your behalf, make sure that you have a system in place that information is relayed to you so you stay in the loop. Because one of the things that she said that's true in that space is that you don't want somebody manipulating your son and using your son for profit, okay? So when you build your team, make sure that your team is knowledgeable, people you can trust, but that you stay and remain in control of the process. All right? Everybody good with that? Next thing. The percentage of all of these things we're talking about happening is slim, okay? Your son being an elite high school prospect, that's possible. Him playing at the Division I level, it's possible, but it's slim. Depending on who you ask, what is it, Coach? Maybe 1%? Of guys going to play at Division I level of athletes? Is that close? 1% shit is 3,000. That's it, right? And now with the transfer portal and guys looking at older guys, shit is even harder, all right? And playing in the NBA is like hitting the lottery, right? So what you have to use is basketball as a vehicle to help your son prepare for manhood, okay? And there are a couple of things that are really important when you're talking about basketball as it compares to life. There are a lot of things that are parallel. One, you want to help to build a confident young man, all right? If we don't leave with anything else from here, instill confidence in your young man, all right? We want to build young men that are competent, all right? You want them to be confident. You want them to be competent. That means they know how to do shit. They can get shit done, okay? 3, we want them to be able to communicate. We want them to be good at communicating. 4, we want them to be competitive. That's important. It's important in business. It's important in life. It's important on the court. And the last thing, we want them to be able to conform, okay? And not in the sense of bending to things around them, all right? But we want them to have the ability to adapt, adaptability, all right? First thing is what? We want them to be confident. We want them to be competent. We want them to be able to communicate. We want them to be competitive, and we want them to be able to conform. When I say the word conform, the definition is able to conform to new conditions. That's going to be important. Circle that word, because when we get further down, you're going to see why it's really important. All right, one of the biggest obstacles in accomplishing these things is what? Somebody give me something. What's the obstacle accomplishing all these things we talked about? Give me one obstacle. Distraction. Give me another one. Social media is another one. The biggest obstacle is you, okay? Because parents have the biggest influence on how their kids think, all right? So I want us to be mindful, starting today, when you get in the car, the things that you say to your son, okay? Does that make sense? Because we want them to avoid making excuses. Sometimes as parents, we give our kids excuses. Like when you get in the car and your kid don't get a write-up or a video, you're going to say, it's one of the words I hate the most. It's politics. Delete that word from your vocabulary. All right, it's politics. My kid didn't get this, it's politics. My kid didn't get the start, it's politics. All right, delete that word. The next thing is try to avoid bashing your coach, his coach. Don't talk about the referees. All of that shit screws your kid up, because we want our kids to be what? Confident, right? And confidence means that no matter what happens, I can get it done, right? But if you give them built-in excuses from 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th, at some point it's ingrained in their mind that when something doesn't go right for them, it's somebody else's fault, right? Does that make sense? We want them to be able to conform. What's the word that I use as a substitute for conform? You want them to be able to adapt, right? So it means if the ref made a bad call, who cares? Make it happen. Make it work. Does that make sense? Because parents, you give them all kinds of excuses. It's the ball, it's the floor, it's the coach, it's the uniforms. You can't score because your teammate doesn't pass you the ball. None of that shit matters, right? Everybody understand that? So change the way you talk to your sons when you get in the car. All right, really, I'm gonna fly through these things really quickly. Health and wellness, but we'll talk about mental health, and she'll elaborate on it. She's an expert on it. Just my evaluation from being around guys, from thousands of kids for the past 15 years. All of these goals and dreams we talked about put an unbelievable amount of stress and pressure on your kid, right? More pressure than any of us have ever seen. Social media, you get on social media, a guy got an offer from Kansas or Kentucky or Houston or whatever, and then your son doesn't have any offers. It makes him tense. It makes him nervous, right? When guys get nervous, they typically fall into some other trap, whether it's partying or girls or weed. Some of y'all kids probably smoke weed, all right? But we want to make sure that our kids have another outlet. So when you put those list of goals that we talked about at the very beginning, I want you to talk to them about having one hobby outside of basketball that's not video games. For me, it's piano. I taught myself how to play the piano a few years ago. It gives me an unbelievable amount of joy and peace. Find a hobby, all right? We don't want them to play video games. Why? Why don't we want to play video games? It's a distraction. We talked about we want our kids to be able to communicate. When kids sit and play video games for hours and hours and hours and stroll on their phone for hours, it impacts and impedes their ability to articulate and to communicate, all right? So find a hobby for them, all right? It'll help them relieve some stress. It'll help them chill out and relax, help them get their mind off basketball, and it'll keep them doing from some of those other things we talked about. Third thing, player development. This is the single most important thing, all right? So when you start talking about player development, it can come from high school. It can come from AAU. It can come from somebody who does skills training. It can come from somebody who does strength and conditioning. Those 4 things, all right? When you leave here, we talked about your son being confident. When you talk about the basketball piece, player development is more important than anything else. How many of you guys had a great AAU experience this summer for your kid? A great AAU experience? About 10%, 15%, all right? Some of that experience, or the lack thereof, is because you didn't have a plan, okay? What's the most important thing when you're looking for an AAU team? And I won't talk about high school or skill development or performance training, but talk on AAU because that was my background. The number one thing you should look for when you're looking for an AAU team, we're talking about player development. Number one, somebody give me something. Coaching, maybe. The number one thing that you should be looking for when you pick an AAU team should be development. Number one is more important than anything else. If somebody calls you to recruit your son and they start talking about shoes and what circuit they're playing on and what uniforms they have and how many flights they're gonna buy your family, if they don't talk about player development, you say, hold on real quick and then click over, okay? And then don't come back. What's number one? The most important thing when you pick an AAU team? Player development. This shit is the most important thing because the minute your son can't play basketball anymore, none of the other shit matters. They can give you 5 pair of shoes. If you can't play, them shoes ain't gonna help you. Player development is one, all right? The second most important thing when you're picking an AAU team is experience. You need to play on a team where your son is going to play in the games. It's crazy how many parents tell, hey, my son playing in EYBL, my son playing on a gauntlet, my son is doing this, my son is doing that, and they never get in. All right? Number one is what? Player development. Number 2 is experience. Number 3 is opportunity. All right? He needs to play on a team where he gets the opportunity to do things that's going to translate to the next level. So if your son is 5'10", and he's playing on a team and they playing him at small forward, that's the wrong AAU team, all right? If he's a point guard, he needs to be able to have the ball, not the whole game, all right? Because they'll have other point guards on the team. They have other point guards in college. He needs to be able to make decisions, make reads, make mistakes. Shit, turn it over sometime. He needs to be able to manage a game, know time and score. How many timeouts we have, how much time is on the shot clock. He has to learn those things. He has to have the ball to learn those things. All right, opportunity. The last thing is exposure. So after they give you their spiel about all the other things, exposure is the last thing. All right, player development, experience, opportunity, exposure. Next thing, next level. All right, the game of college basketball has changed. All right, give me some factors that have changed it. The portal. Transfer portal. Somebody said NIL. All right, we'll talk about NIL in 3 minutes. Okay, we'll come back to it. The transfer portal is a game changer. All right. The second thing is the pressure, and these guys know, the pressure that the athletic department puts on coaches to win right away, a sense of urgency. There was a time where, you come in, you bring in your high school guys, you develop them, maybe year 4, y'all winning some games, year 5, you got it going, right? By now, year 5, if you don't have it figured out, your ass is fired. All right? So now it makes the transfer portal even more important. So if I have the choice between picking your 18-year-old son as a freshman or getting Mike Miles or Wade Taylor in the transfer portal, which one you taking? I'm taking one of those guys, right? Because they could help me win right away, which makes it more important that your kid is developed and prepared and that he has the ability to do what? What's that word we talked about at the beginning? Adapt. He got to be able to adapt. Because when he recruits you, he may recruit you under the assumption that he wants your son to start, right? Doesn't mean he lied. Everybody say, man, coaches lie. I don't think they lie. I think that at the time when they're recruiting you, that's the best option. But when Mike Miles come available, he's the best option, right? So when he walks in the gym, you got to be able to adapt. You can't make excuses. You got to be able to compete against him. And then coach says, you know what? I'm going to play Mike 30 minutes. I'm going to give your son 10, right? And then I'm going to play them together 6 or 7 minutes. Now you got 16, 17 minutes. That's enough to get something done, right? But your son has to be able to adapt. That's why I told you I would come back to that word. A couple more things. There are a couple new pathways. How many of you guys are familiar with OTE? A couple of you guys. You guys should do some study and some research on it. All right, because again, the game has changed. There are other opportunities, and OTE's done. I'm a huge fan of OTE, and they've created a new pathway where you can go, and instead of taking a base salary, you can sign a scholarship deal where you only get NIL money and still be eligible to go to college. All right, so study up on OTE. That's another great pathway. G League at Night. How many of you guys are familiar with it? Good. Another great pathway. I'm also a huge fan of G League Ignite. All right, study, do some research on G League Ignite. All right. Last thing, brand management, NIL. For you guys now, it doesn't seem as important, okay? But in 2 years, your kid will be going to college, stepping on a college campus, hopefully, all right? You want him to be in position to capitalize on his name, image, and likeness. So when I call brands about players, the first thing they ask me is what? Take a guess. They don't care about his name. Somebody said social media. What's his social media following? How many followers does he have? The number one thing. The second thing is how much interaction or engagement with his audience that he has. If somebody's going to pay you to be a brand ambassador, the only thing they care about is how many eyeballs can they get on their product. If I give you a t-shirt and I pay you $1,000 for 3 posts and 1 Instagram story, I want to know that your followers, the people who watch you, become fans of my brand and ultimately buy from me. All right? They're supposed to be voting on a rule in January or looking deeper into it where athletes in high school can benefit from name, image, and likeness. Okay? It's coming. And it may not happen right away. They may vote on it in January. They may turn it down. They may vote on it in January. It may not go into effect until June. It may be a year from now, maybe 2 years from now, but you guys need to prepare. But helping your son to grow his social media following, to have some form of brand identity. When people look at him or see him, they know who he is, that he has value off the court. All right? Does that make sense? 6 things to help him build your brand, 6 tips. 1 is to be elite at your sport. It helps. The guys that are dudes, the guys that can play, the guys that are always in the media, the guys are writing about or looking at, those guys have an advantage. Be elite at your sport. The second thing is have a marketing plan. And again, when they change that rule, you guys are going to be in the same position as the college athletes. So I would start now doing your research and trying to figure that piece out or get connected with some company who can help you with that. The third thing is have a niche or a lane, which is called your brand identity. It doesn't have to be basketball. It can be another hobby. The fourth thing is your son should post regularly. They spend enough time on it, but most of the time they're just scrolling, looking at other people. All right, they should post regularly. It should be consistent content that's in line with their values and their brand. Number 5, they should have some storytelling component that talks about who they are as an athlete, as a person. It could be about your family. All right, your audience, your fans want to know who you are. And the last thing is engage with your audience. We got those 6 things? All right, I appreciate your time. I'll be hanging around watching some of the basketball there on the other side. So if you guys want to grab me, have any questions, but I appreciate your time, you guys. You guys were great. Thank you. Hey YouTube, Rhossi Carron here. Thanks for tuning in. I truly appreciate your support, and I hope that you found this content both entertaining and informative. Please remember to like and share this video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel to stay in the loop with all of our exclusive content, plus behind the scenes footage from the sports and entertainment industry. Thanks again, and I hope to see you guys soon.